What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff, arm yourselves, life stuff. I'm always hesitant to talk about men because men stink, but today we're talking a bit about why men stink, at least nowadays. I had no idea what to talk about today, even though I knew I needed to talk about something. It's like a biological urge at this point, but we settled on the topic about 30 or 40 minutes ago. I watched the clip of Anakin from the Clone Wars animated show beating the shit out of some dude. And that opened up a tangent we'll use to get into the main topic. We talk about sex and gender on this channel semi-frequently, and this moment from this show opens up what I think would be a sex difference, a biological difference in behavior and outlook. Because I don't think people realize the way man jealousy works, especially in relationships. If it gets to the point two dudes are in conflict over a woman, then she stopped mattering a long time ago. She probably stopped mattering at the basest levels the moment the other guy came into the picture. But she really stops mattering once issues start coming up. She might as well be a rock or a banana or something. Or she could even be 1 square foot of ground. It doesn't matter. It's an ownership principle. And I feel confident that is not socially or mimetically trained. I think that's a genetic thing in men. Another important difference to know is a man's propensity to put his fucking hand through his monitor when his computer keeps fucking up. No, this is a show now. That is the sound my microphone hears when the chicken is cold, when it fucks up my recordings, when it fucks up my train of thought repeatedly for another 30 minutes. But this is all good. I don't care that it fucks up in the beginning of the recordings and then screws up my voice over and over again because it's demonstrative. This fuck up contributes to the point we're trying to make. I wanted to try to get deeper about it, but the point is men have a propensity to get violently angry about things. And I forgot if I mentioned this or went into any detail about it 30 seconds ago. Because for you it's 30 seconds, for me it's 10 minutes. Oh, you son of a fucking cunt. These difference fucked up the beginning of the recording again, so I was just talking without it actually recording anything again. These differences are important these differences are important to know because they allow us to understand ourselves better, and what do we get when we understand ourselves better? We can plan around ourselves. Because we, as little apes, are difficult to plan around. We're fucking stupid. It would be really bad if I grabbed a hammer and smashed my computer apart and, I don't know, what else is there to break around here? Is there anything valuable or biological to smash? What is something I will really regret doing if I do it, but I'll do it anyway? That's the kind of shit you need to figure out so you know do those things. And I just checked this last little video snippet that finally went through. It sounds like it's cutting out words in between shit I'm doing or twisting them up. It would be such a shame if a young mother and her beloved children while I'm dealing with technical issues. That would be such a tragedy. You're working so hard to have some kind of a point, and it devolves into all you can think about is how do I give this thing sentience so I can make it hurt for inconveniencing me. That's what artificial intelligence is all about. We are giving technology sentience so we can torture it for fucking up our projects. Now, we're talking about manness today. And what is one key aspect of manness? Well, we talked about part of it yesterday, the aggression thing. Aggression and violence are human things, but men are very aggressive and very violent on a genetic level. Now, we're a lot less these days because we've been defanged, and that's another thing we're talking about. But even with our thorough castration, that violence tendency doesn't go away. It just comes out weaker and worse. So, what's another reason men are in such a bad state right now, such a decline, aside from being whiny pussies looking for somebody to come save them? Aside from that, and aside from being fucking stupid, really stupid on top of it, cunt. Oh, of course. Of course. It starts. I call it a cunt, and then it wakes up. That's good. That's really good. I think. I think we are living at. I think we're a Frankenstein experiment gone wrong, but instead of becoming dangerous, we became even weaker. But it's all intentional, of course. Great example of the dangers of leaving strong men, or leaving just men as men, alone and up to their own devices. Rome, I don't remember which cocksucker fucking emperor thought of this, but it was a really good idea. Young men, nothing to do, maybe some combat experience, they could just really fuck things up if they wanted to. So they introduce pensions and this land, they give you this land, you put in your time, do your service, and then you fuck off to this land they give you. They're not giving you land out of the kindness of their hearts, they are occupying you, giving you something else angry about. Respect over land rights, land ownership, being pissed at people coming on your property. They're using private I'm a fucking communist. They're using private property to redirect your male jealousy anger instinct into things threatening to other loser dudes who are not powerful instead of people who are powerful. And you always see something like this. Powerful people trying to make less powerful people weaker, disarming, or a more American example, the Willie Lynch shit. But, I mean, these measures are important to take for disempowering people of all sorts, but you're especially concerned with young, strong, angry, motivated males. And I know this shit is always happening, but the way it's happened most recently is fascinating to me. Oh, okay, there we go. We're good. And, oh, you fucker, you fucked up my train of thought, and now we're gonna sit here until I get it back. So what was I thinking about? The way this one has played out. Well, no, I just said that. That was the thing I just said. Right. I'm not right now able to. This is when it started, and then this happened, and then that happened, and now we're here. But you can see the progression. And we're going to go through that progression, so bear with me. Maybe you guys are very smart. You're all a bunch of smarty pantses. I'm sure you'll be able to fill in the details. Dumb pants on head Skimmerlit doesn't know. Sometime in the 20th century, I'm guessing late 50s, early 60s, men were defanged. Or at least the efforts began. I'm sure this was happening elsewhere because look at Europeans. That's something I was thinking about earlier today. I hate Europeans thoroughly, but the Saint O'Neill example, if you're a dude, how viscerally uncomfortable it is to sit down to pee. I imagine that's what European men feel every day. And actually, this progression we're talking about, I think, happened faster in Europe, probably. Because while Americans tried to turn into the curve and then steered off the road, European men embraced it and then became what they are. Something happened, and American men were asked, or maybe strong armed, not sure what that looked like, but there was a request they lay down their manness and, I don't know, become more progressive, become weaker. And the powers that be expected to get their way, but they, and I'm sure everyone else, were thinking this was going to take longer because men would resist it, but eventually, through moral pressure, which was still, I mean, it's always big, but through all sorts of pressure, despite the resistance, men would eventually fall in line, and throughout this struggle, there would be a settling in period. Because asking men to forfeit or repress what they are doesn't just affect men, particularly young men, it affects everybody. And there needs to be that settling in period. But, surprise, there wasn't a settling in period. Because there wasn't a fight, there was no resistance. Men just agreed to do it. And, of course, I don't mean some literal overnight thing. We're talking this happening over the course of decades, but when you say settling in, you think more like 50 to 100 years. This happened maybe in 20. Because boomers are affected by this too. Boomers are pussies. And that makes me wonder who or what generation started this process that turned out not to be much of a process at all. Anyway, by and large, men fell off because they wanted to do the right thing. Except because they agreed to it and made everything happen faster than was expected, there wasn't that settling in period, and there wasn't a plan put together as a society for how to have men who aren't men. I don't think anyone, including the powers that be, expected this. Now, the reason this hasn't been corrected is because for them, even though they didn't arrive where they wanted to be the way they wanted to get there, they've still achieved their goal. Men are no longer threats and in no position to organize and regain their manness and become threats again. Everybody's miserable, but we're all in line and we can't do anything about it, and that's probably even better for the people who want it that way. Now, the issue for Joe and Jane Dipshit within society is everybody likes manly men. I don't. That's one of the biggest confusions I've watched unfold for, what, 10 years now? Despite all this shit about toxic masculinity, and then on the other side, they're trying to take away your masculinity. They aren't trying to take it away. You gave it away. Your fathers gave it away. Your grandfathers gave it away. It's gone. There's nothing to take. They aren't taking anything from you. This is a nonsense dispute. You're getting mad at people who don't exist anymore, and you're acting like you're one of these people who don't exist anymore. Everybody likes manness. A man-coded man, except for people in power. This is something I've been thinking about for a long time now, but I saw it when I watched that. It's not championing Anakin's side. The queer community, lots of women, all sorts of men, all nationalities. Why? Because everybody loves watching a man mete out justice. Everybody. It's not a question of whether or not, and that's the funny thing about toxic masculinity. They love toxic masculinity. It's it's a matter of orientation and aiming. You love the toxically masculine man who beats the shit out of toxically masculine men. As long as he's socialized to your taste enough and on your. Oh, I'm sorry, it cut me off. On your side. It completely fucked up my train of thought again. Now, sometimes you hear about cool scootings or cool scooters, but can you imagine a computer lab shooting? Everybody comes into school and there's just been a massacre of the technology. Badly you are fucking. Okay, no, there we go. We're back. I would never do never do such a thing to young, innocent, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed computers, but I can totally understand people who would. Is the YouTube reviewing AI, the content community guidelines AI, will it look at this video because I said cool scooter and, you know, need to consider whether or not to approve it and then think about how cunty the microphones it's dealt with before? I'm gonna give you a pass on this one. Anyway, let's try to get our train of thought back again. People love men, including the aggressive, toxic ones, as long as they are on their side and programmed to their sensibilities. And men can be that way. I think men want to be that way. I think men want to be toxically masculine for good reasons or reasons they think are good all the time. And you see that even in these little dorky dudes. We talked about intellectual violence a while back from that book, the way. My God. Oh, fucking Christ. Okay. The Way of Men, Intellectual Violence. That's one even more impotent. Cut me off again, but you get the idea. You act when you're defanged, you gum people, because even though you can't bite them, and even though it makes you look pathetic, even though it makes you feel pathetic, even though you are pathetic, you can't help but act on this feeling you have in the highest form you can. And unfortunately, the highest form you have access to is Twitter. So men don't get to be what they are. Women don't get men at all, and that's an interesting case, because I think one of the reasons men probably ceded what they are is, it's another thing Saint O'Neill talked about. Women want you to be a scary man for them, but for them is the operative part of that. They want to have the best of your wildness and none of the worst aspects. Worst being the self-determination, high violence and aggression gives a man. What I think women of that day weren't expecting was for men to roll over, or like with those Mel Gibson tapes with, I think, no, it was Patrice who said it. Jim Norton praised it. Flinched, except now you have men who are basically women always on their period, that period being the need to get rid of their bad eggs or their bad thoughts, their violence, and being utterly unable to do that. And I don't think the powers that be expected women to turn on that or take advantage of that to the degree they have. We have a sizable women audience. I think women are my core audience. As in, we talk about this all the time. But you sons of bitches. I like women a lot. I love women. But you fuckers. Women's part in this huge play was they were on the side of the people who said drop the guns, but I don't think women expected anyone to drop the guns, but then men did. And that fucked up all their plans that they told nobody about, but expected them to know. And now we're in smash the boot on the throat and twist it level. That's where we are now. Have you ever dealt with one of these women who. The fucking. I despise the trad wife thing because it's a farce top to bottom. You're trying to return to a version of the past that didn't exist and wasn't worth anything because you still want your man under your control, basically. And that was the next part of that. You ever deal with them, they're hyper controlling because they don't want to submit. And I'm not saying women should submit. I don't like submissive women in their essence, don't like what they are, but they don't want to submit, they want the idea of submitting, they want to live a fantasy, and they need a doll, essentially a doll with a dick, to do exactly as they say, dress them up and make them act how they want them to act so they can try to live out this retarded fantasy. That's why these dudes, that's why I don't talk to dudes. Don't like talking to dudes anymore. Dude, she's so traditional. She cooks me dinner. She cleans the house. And she looks so good in the pants, my pants that she's wearing. And she even gave me her dress to wear, and I look so good in that. I feel so good. I feel so giddy, man. It's another I don't like the way black dudes have adopted man and dude as terms of endearment. That used to be the easy way to sniff out certain sorts of white dudes and where you stand with them, but now black dudes do it. Which I guess no, it's I don't guess it's not a problem. It is a problem because it's corny and it's a weakness identifier, and you guys have adopted it. I'm sure you had your own weakness or fucking fantasy things, but it's spreading. We're all infected. We've been infected since the day we were born, and it's getting worse. But this is a perfect opportunity to segue into the final bit. Men gave themselves a raw deal by failing to negotiate or think, and now they're supremely ass mad about it. You have dudes, you get dudes now who think, what is it? It's not just, I mean, they put on their pajamas and they listen to the fat dude or the woman telling them how to fight and how to live. They're teaching them philosophy. They're teaching them the mind of a philosopher and the body of a gladiator. And you're some skinny white dude who got tattoos because that's supposed to make you cool. You think needing to brand yourself with your identity is it's just it's demoralizing, and I was correct earlier when I said you now have men who are essentially women, because men, and I don't just mean some men, I mean over 95% of men, at least in developed countries, ironically, they aren't men. What they do is they engage in activities they think are male coded in a womanly way because they aren't allowed to be men. You get the Eye of the Tiger dudes, you get the tactical dudes, you get the Twitter warriors. That I was surprised. I never got advertised that whole Liver King thing, but that whole idea, the Jordan Peterson people, the Andrew Tate people, I think the way to look at this is you haven't lost your limb, or you haven't lost your dick. It's just been shrunken with ice and acid to the point you might as well not have it. So you're aware you're missing something very important, but you aren't allowed to get your dick back, so you look for all these ideas to make yourself feel like you have a dick and to make other people think you have a dick. But you know you don't, and everybody else knows you don't. You're buying pacifiers from these manosphere grabblers or any other activity that allows you to feel like you might be a man when you know you don't or you aren't. Because why hasn't there been any political bloodshed? We've had all these protests or riots or what have you, and everybody's acting like anytime these things happen, they're the worst thing in the world perpetrated by whatever political opponent you don't like. But there haven't been any lynchings. People haven't been burned in effigy. There haven't been any Boston massacres. How do you know men aren't men? With the level of anger we're saturated with today, and with the urgency we talk about how the fate of the West or the fate of decency is at stake or whatever. I don't know, what do left-leaning people think is at stake? Is it freedom? I don't. You would think there would have been real political violence by now, but it hasn't happened. And I think all these protests and riots and insurrections, I think they're very important for maintaining men's weakness, because as long as these things are going on, the people who are participating, or the dudes who are participating, get to feel like they're being actual men for once and taking destiny into their own hands. And then you have the other side who gets to prepare and feel like they're under attack, and they know they would stand up to this huge threat. And it's so far it's been play acting, and we act like the future of our country is at stake, and I think it is, but it's not coming from civil unrest. Ultimately, civilians, and especially men, young, angry, violent men, aren't threats. As long as the it's like the as long as the TV comes on, you have water, you have food, you have entertainment, you're not gonna do anything stupid. Now, as long as you have an outlet for your anger that lets you feel like you're a man and that you're fighting for something, the actual powers are under no threat. You won't take it any further. I think what'll happen with the nation, my guess, is, or maybe this will be another thing that happens a lot faster than it should, but the United States as it stands won't last. What'll happen is these future generations of powers that be will figure out more efficient ways to break up and control the population. Maybe we'll do a Balkans thing, or maybe it'll be something else. Maybe the United States technically will continue to stand, but the way we operate won't anymore. Because it's inefficient. What we have right now works. Everybody stays under control because they're in the matrix. They feel like their needs are met. But it does, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's working perfectly right now. Who knows? We'll never find out, and we'll never do anything about it because there's nobody left to do anything about it. Maybe you do have isolated incidents of men who are actual men, but you can either snuff them out because they're alone, they're singular, or people who might be threats or would be threats in a different timeline are now too afraid to try to organize because they might get J-Starked. Anyway, men's decline came from an effort to disarm them of their dangerous essence. And then men screwed everything up by agreeing to it quickly and nonviolently, which for the people disarming them turned out to be an even better thing. Probably even, it makes me think maybe it was planned, because I don't see a way men can break out of this dumb manosphere cycle. We talk about the anger virus. Men are most susceptible to it. And we, all of us, are way more concerned with finding binkies to suck than we are doing anything about it. Because doing anything about it would mean getting bloody, and it's like that scene in Snatch. Ironically, your dick and balls are shriveled. Yeah, we are not ready to unshrivel our dicks and balls. It's not gonna happen. So much easier to suck on a binky and maybe get a little close to it by protesting or something, but then not actually going anywhere with it. And in all this, women at large, or in general, are being women. They're being lukewarm, and because they are lukewarm, because they are neither hot nor cold, I will spit them out of my mouth. Men stink, and on an individual level, we need to figure out how to extricate ourselves from this situation. Dissatisfied men and women need to figure out alternatives, because there's no fixing this. And trying to figure out how to fix this instead of figuring out something different is a huge waste of time. You'll spend your entire life doing it, and you'll probably have no effect on anything. Because you aren't really trying to fix it, you are pacifying yourself, feeling like you're involved in trying to make things better, but you aren't, because you can't fix this. You could say the same thing about trying to find an alternative. The difference is an alternative is something you can build from scratch, put somewhere else, something. But one person, or even a few people, trying to fix this huge mess, you're really stupid, and I'm sure you feel noble, you feel romantic, and, go ahead, fuck off. Go to another channel, stay away from me. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.